bars in a rave. Man, I go hard like Santan.
Hello and welcome to another Touchline Gunners podcast. It's your boy Dankoogs back on hosting duty after a short hiatus, to be honest. Just so happens that I've not been on the pod for the past few weeks, but we are back following a 2-1 win over Fulham, and I'm joined by my good friend Khalil HT3. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back on the pod. I've been living life. I went to Thailand. When I went to Thailand, I was accused of stealing from the Patreon funds, and glad to see that those allegations have not been cleared. But anyway, I'm back.
The allegations have not been cleared, have they? Yeah, so you're on remand. Yeah, is that what you're telling me?
Listen, all I'm going to say is, right, when I go on holiday, it's suspicious. But when Dr. Lee is posting the West Wing of his manor, everyone's fine. No one's questioning those sorts of funds. But with me, I can't even go on a simple holiday without people asking questions. Anyway.
The doctor has got legitimate source of funding, so the people, the streets that aren't informed on your current occupation. So unless you want to start showing pay slips, this and the other,
I'm a humble man working a government job, man.
The suspicions will be there, man. But yes, it is good to be back podding, to be honest. I'm been a bit rusty, trying to get my training wheels off again, but we can get straight into it. And before we do, make sure you follow in Touchline Gunners on all social media platforms. I think TL Gunners is the app on the platform known as X. It's that on TikTok, it's that on Instagram as well. So if you're not, make sure you're showing us love and supporting us on there as well. We post, sort of clips, this, that, and the other of the pod. And a few YouTube shorts and whatnot as well. So yeah, go subscribe to the YouTube as well. So Khalil, this has actually been quite an eventful week for Arsenal on and off the pitch. It was international break. We kind of took a week off, I should say. There wasn't really, I didn't watch a second of football. Today was the first football that I've watched in, I would say, 2 weeks since we played Chelsea. I've not sat down, put on a match. Life has been blamming me differently, so I ain't really had time, but I managed to twang myself some time this evening to from upper management, to go and you can read that as management at work, management at home. Both will probably be accurate, for me to go. Yeah, you thought wrong. That's just what I'm going to say. You thought wrong. So to go and watch the match, man, and watch the return of the Mack. Saka getting big standing O from the home crowd when he came on the pitch, and he repaid back, the good and well wishes with a goal after, I think, 6 minutes. So that was definitely the two loudest cheers of the night. Him coming on the pitch, and secondly him bagging to kind of seal the 3 points, I should say. So that was a very nice moment, man. But Khalil, let's talk about the game. We did beat Fulham 2-1. What were your overall thoughts watching that performance?
It was a solid performance. It was a good enough to get the job done performance, is the way I phrase it. I think first half, I think both halves really, I think we controlled the tempo and the pace of the game. I think it was a bit typical of what we've seen, during our offensive struggles, where, we can progress the ball to the final third and it slows down a bit. But I think we did create some decent opportunities, whether it resulted in a shot on goal or whether it was just like opportunities to either drive at goal or just make the final pass. I think we did all right from that point. I have to give a few shout outs. I think Ethan was good first half. I think Martinelli was really good first half. I think when I say they're good, I think they were able to probe and ask questions of the Fulham defence, which allowed us to create opportunities, which was nice. I think we even though I wouldn't say we played at a fast tempo, but I would say that we played at a decent enough tempo in order to create avenues and opportunities, which we did. And yeah, Mikel Merino scoring again, a bit of fortune on that goal. But again, as a forward, if you take shots at goal, things can happen. And it's interesting to note Merino's hot run of form since he got moved to centre forward, and you juxtapose it against the conversations about Gyokeres this week. I think maybe the fan base are overthinking this when it comes to a striker. But yeah, obviously good to get the early goal. And I think, we managed to pace the game well. Second half, I think there was naturally, maybe there was a bit of a lull. But again, as you mentioned, Saka coming on was what the moment we were waiting for. And for him to come on and score so soon after coming on as well, it was just perfect. And that ended up being the winning goal for us. Big concerns about our injuries, specifically Gabriel. That really rattled me. In fact, yeah, when he went down, it didn't even matter that we scored, because I was just purely thinking about what that means for us next week. And I didn't realize that Ben White was left out of the squad until a bit later. So again, when that delayed news dropped for me, I was even more rattled, because as much as Kyrgios was fine tonight, I think you really want your first choice defense going up to the Bernabeu, and it seems as if we're going to end up in a situation where we won't have our first choice centre back pairing, and that is obviously a huge thing. He managed to walk off, so maybe something to be a little bit hopeful about there. But again, huge concern, because he has been the bedrock. He's been a better performer than I think any of our defenders this season. So it was really a crushing blow, and I really think he would have. I mean, we don't know yet, but what I mean, it's not looking good. So one of the big things to point out from today, and obviously Timber went off as well. I'm hoping Timber is more just of a knock, because again, we really do not need a defensive crisis going into our biggest game in probably, I don't know, a decade or so. These are things to want. But back to the performance, maybe we got a little bit fortunate with Nunes missing an open goal. But at the end of the day, this is the Premier League. It's very difficult to go through 90 minutes and not give the opponents some opportunities. Fulham have had a good season. They're a good team. They've got dangerous players. Jimenez obviously has had a little bit of a revival. Obviously Muniz has done all right for them. We've seen Iwobi have a very good season. So they've got dangerous players, and we might have rode our luck a little bit at the same time. Just as our opening goal was a deflected shot, their goal had a little bit of fortune to it. So either way, can't complain. First game after the international break can be tricky at times. So again, good to see that we managed to get through it. And again, headline, Bukayo Saka back and contributing, which is exactly what we want to see before next week. So yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, man. You touched on some good points there, man. That's a very good summary for me. Let's get into some of the individual performances on the day, because I think there's a few things to touch on. I do want to start with Gabriel's injury and what that might mean for Madrid. I'm just going to go in chronological order through the match. I think that was probably the first thing of note that happened in the game. I actually couldn't get my match pass to reload, right? Because I get no signal in as soon as I step over the bridge, my signal is collapsed. Yeah. So I had to go back over the bridge, away from my turnstile, to refresh my pass, get that loaded. So I missed kickoff by about 6-7 minutes. Sitting down, and then about 5-10 minutes later, I'm seeing Gabriel holding his hammy, and I'm like, "Yo, what is going on here?" And then I think maybe 5 minutes after that, Timber goes down holding his knee, and I was thinking like, "Yo, why do we never just lose one defender? It's always we lose 2 or 3, because Calafiori is already banjanked away on international duty, who would probably be, first deputy into that left centre-back position, probably where he's stronger at the moment, for me, in terms of where he might fit in this team. And we've seen this before. I think it was the exact same game week a couple of seasons back when Saliba went down, and it wasn't just Saliba that we lose, it's Tomiyasu as well. And it seems a very similar situation. I don't know. I didn't see any of the pre-match stuff around Ben White. I'm not sure what his injury is. I'm hoping that is minor. Because
what was described, I think the Arteta quote was he had a niggle a few days ago and he tried to train and he found it too difficult, so they left him out. So that could mean days, it could be weeks. It's really difficult to read into.
Yeah, that's a tough one to take, because I think Ben White's still a very, very, very good centre-back. He slots in there next to Saliba. I'd probably be less worried than if it was Jakob, back there. So that's a tough one, and I'm gonna be, refreshing my timeline to see what they say about Timber. I know he's come off a few times this season with cramp. They said he was ill over international break. He didn't really train, so I'm hoping it's more of that, and not really him, holding his knee, because Ben White can only cover one position, man. He can't do two. So we need to see where we are. Hopefully the Gabriel one is minor, and I'm not going to lie to you, he might need to hold some injections. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
I was thinking the same.
He might need to hold some injections. My good brother in Christ, Gabriel. Yeah, look, your career is on the line. Yeah, you want to go Saudi, this, that, and the other. Let's leave on a high, man. Risk that hammy. So, boy, yeah, that will be difficult. And I think, playing Real Madrid, he probably has been our best defender, probably been my player of the season for Arsenal this year, which says a lot about, sort of how our attack has been. That I'm giving it to a centre-back. Can't remember the last time I'd say a centre-back was our player of the season for a very, very, very long time, to be honest. But I probably will give it to Gabriel. I think he's been exceptional this year. So that would be a huge blow to take if he's not able to play against Madrid, to be honest, because he has, been a man mountain this season. So yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's obviously very frustrating. When you get to the business end of these competitions, you want to have your best 11 out there, and when that isn't always possible, you want to have some sort of representative lineup. Because now what I'm thinking is, I don't believe, as I rate Ben White, I think he's very good. Him and Gabriel were a good partnership even before Saliba came along. But I'm just thinking, I don't think Saliba and Ben White have ever played as a two when they've been at Arsenal. So again, that is a new dynamic you're introducing to a point where that's going to be tested beyond belief. You're going against the most talented attacker in the world, where you don't necessarily have that familiarity with your partner. So yeah, with Gabriel, as much as I don't want to accept it, I've accepted that there's a solid chance he's not going to be available next week. And that takes us to the second leg. If we're in a situation where we've gone to the Bernabeu with the second, with a lead or two, I would do everything in my power to pump him up with Compound V and EPO allegedly to get him on that pitch. you want your best players there, but in the situation that he's not, you already reference how we have injuries, but we also have clusters of injuries, and that's what really kills us. Because if Calafiori is available, cool, you're disappointed that Gabriel isn't there, but at least you've got a ready-made left-footed, replacement in the back line. Or if Tomiyasu was available, then cool. It's disappointing, but you've got someone who can play on that left side and is comfortable there. Now, Saliba has played there for France, but again, as I've referenced, the partnership with Ben White as a central two is not something that we've seen, and it looks like it's going to be debuted at, against Real Madrid, of all places to get that debuted. So, yeah, it's a really tricky one. Best wishes to Gabriel. He's been absolute colossus for us. He's been a colossus for years. And Saliba gets a lot of praise, and rightfully so. But I think you can tell, especially when you watch them live as well, you see like how communicative Gabriel is. He's a leader in the back line, and he defends those wide channels so well. He's aggressive. He's everything you want in a leader, and that from a psychological point of view is as big as a blow as his abilities on the pitch. So yeah, man, prayers up. Let's hope he's back sooner rather than later. And if he's not, yes, we do have a capable understudy in Ben White. Even calling him understudy feels wrong, but you know what I mean. It's going to be potentially a new dynamic which is going to be introduced to that game, which isn't ideal. But hey, we're here. You know, we've got our main man back. So the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away, as they say. So let's see what gets cooked up.
1 in, 1 out, man. Word to the Cronkies, yeah. 1 in, 1 out. that started from the summer and it's continued throughout our whole season, man. It's just absolutely nasty work, to be honest. Absolutely nasty work, man. But we move. We'll wait for the updates. Hopefully it's minor. You know, strap up that leg, pause, and you know, get some injections, and we'll see where we land with these injuries, man. But yeah, back to the game. Basically, the next thing that happened of note was the Merino goal in that first half. I did, being honest, get very frustrated watching that first half, right? I know it's sort of more of the same, really, with how some of these teams come to play us, right? It's just going to the Emirates these days. It's quite difficult when, you know, the team sets up with a back five, they shuffle left, they shuffle right, there's no space in the middle. Arsenal sort of passing it around the back with the centre backs, this, that, and the other, trying to, you know, almost like play a game of chess, this, that, and the other. David Raya putting his foot on the ball, doing the little ball rolls, this, that, and the other. And, you know, I can't help it. I get so frustrated watching us because it feels like, you know, we're turning away from some of these forward passes, the opportunity to really, you know, cut a team open. And the goal, I think, comes from, to his credit, Thomas Partey. I think he played a ball between the lines to Odegaard. He played it first time to Timber. Timber then also played a very cute pass, I think, inside Anthony Robinson. And then Nwaneri cuts it back to Merino, does a little bit of juggling, deflection, and it's in the back of the net, right? And I think that I did like the fact that we looked to accelerate quite quickly at that opportunity, and it's one of the few times in that first half where we actually did play through their lines to, you know, one of the midfielders, right? And we actually were able to score from it, right? I think we're kind of too happy to just go out wide first, whereas I think the more dangerous thing is that central and then wide, right? Where you know, you're playing it into the winger where they're moving, where it's not necessarily them facing up their man, receiving it, and expecting them to cook something, because you make the decision for the player there, right? Ethan makes the running behind, Timber plays the pass, people are moving, defenders are moving, the defense is collapsing, allows you to do the cutback, this, that, and the other, right? And I feel like we're too happy to sort of play around the block, and we for the goal, we saw the benefit of playing through the block. And it reminds me of some of them, you know, the Wenger goals, where it's like, it's all about third man runs, it's all about movement off the ball, it's all about trying to play a dangerous pass, right? Because, you know, 2 banks of 4 and whatnot, that used to be, you know, your Sam Allardyce's go to, your Alan Pardew's go to, your Alan Kirbishley's go to, you know, when they used to come to the Emirates as well, right? Your Tony Pulis's and whatnot. And we saw against those teams, even though they were tough games, they were difficult games, I feel like we were a bit more dangerous in how we tried to create a little bit. And I think that risk-taking element doesn't seem to be there in this team. But you see that when you do move the ball quickly and you do play through, the rewards are there. The rewards are there. So, you know, I think it was almost a chalk and cheese that goal kind of didn't match with how we had actually looked to play the rest of that first half. Maybe it's about finding them openings and picking your moments, this and the other. But I definitely feel like the balance of how often we try that pass is kind of off, you know, and I'd like to see us do it a bit more, because, you know, even if you don't score, then it's still some threat you know, and the team are still nervous. They're unsure. Oh, that pass might come through the middle. I need to be alive to it. Or, you know, he's played that pass to the middle. Is he going to do it again? You know, you get nervous. Players make mistakes when they feel under stress. And I feel like if you kind of just keep passing it around them and not really test, then they get comfortable, you know. And I think it was very, very important that we scored first in this game, because we saw in the previous match against Fulham, tough day when they're defending the lead. You know, they've got something to hold on to, and it's almost like, you know, teams they don't want to let go of it. Whereas, you know, I think you saw in the second half they had to come and try and score, and then we had a lot more opportunities on the counter in the second half, because they had to open up a little bit to try and get something out of the game, man. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the first half and the goal as well?
Yeah, I'll make a bit of reference to the second half as well, only for the goal that we scored, because you made reference to sort of accessing central spaces. You are right that Fulham had to come out more in order to get a goal, but if you see the way Martinelli was involved for the second goal, he wasn't, you know, strictly in his wide position. You know, he's a bit more central, driving towards the goal, then plays the ball out wide. I think it was Marino that put the cross in. So exactly what you mean, because he's managed to cause like a destabilization in the middle. It collapses the defense a little, ball goes out wide, and, you know, Saka's free at the far post. So yeah, with the first goal as well, as you mentioned, because the ball doesn't go out wide straight away, I feel as if it's a bit more difficult for Fulham to defend in that way, and it's a lot less telegraphed, because again, whilst we do have the players who at times can create from a standing start out wide, I feel as if, and you probably agree with this, it's a lot easier for that to be defended, because they're probably expecting the cross in, and most defenses, they will take crosses into the box all day as a means of defending, especially when it's high and it's lofted. You know, those are the things that defenders consider their meat and drink. But yeah, I mean, I completely empathize with the frustration that you feel. I think what I've tried to do is I've obviously tried to recalibrate my expectations on our attacking performances based upon our obvious issues that we've had in terms of injury. Of course, many times I've critiqued the manner in which we have attacked, because I do feel that there's a whole lot of, I won't say a whole lot, I'd say there's definitely more avenues for us to attempt to create, or at least create destabilizations centrally as a means of creating opportunities on goal. And as we've also talked about, our deficiencies in transition. I think sometimes when we talk about transitions, it gets conflated a little. People say, oh, we don't get the opportunity to transition. Where oftentimes, I think it's more a case of we do get opportunities to transition, we just don't execute them well. Not to pick on Ødegaard, this is a problem that is throughout the team, but there were a few occasions when a better final pass, or, you know, cleaner touches, or just more quicker actions and a better execution gets you a half opportunity to break, or it gives you just an extra half second to turn away from a defender and make a next action. So yeah, I mean, this is something that we've debated endlessly in terms of if we were to have another midfielder in there who is an archetype of maybe who's more willing to dribble the ball at feet in order to commit people towards him, which then creates space elsewhere, or if it's just another case of another midfielder in there who is just very quick with the passing actions. Also, you mentioned Partey playing a ball through the lines to help with the first goal, but again, it feels as if it's that thing of Ødegaard is our point of failure in terms of how our attacks get constructed, and if he's not on it, it tends to add to the problem that we already have. So yeah, I've empathized with the frustration, but like I said, I feel as if this game was played at a slightly better tempo for us than some of our other attacking performances, because I think of things like West Ham at home, and I just think of just how completely unthreatening we were. Like if I compare it to that, I'd say it's an obvious improvement. But yeah, these are things to consider tactically, going forward. I will also give just general credit, I guess, to the manager in terms of, yes, the title race is over, but this could have descended into a top four battle, and we seem to be doing just about enough to make sure that we don't have those issues. So, amongst the injuries and so on and so forth, I do appreciate that we are plodding along, even though it's not optimum. We hope that a different game state against Madrid will help us with some of our offensive issues, where because Madrid are making these decisions to be sort of more front-footed, that it opens up spaces for us. But even that in itself, we still need to. Our offensive players, our front five, still need to be making quick decisions and being better executions, because those half spaces, they're there and then they're gone. And where we've been passing out wide and then taking 1-2 shots, maybe Martinelli trying to initiate dribble and beat the guy, beat his fullback. It can work, it does work, but as you said, it can be very sort of repetitive and easy for the defense to handle. So yeah, for the millionth time this season, we're complaining about sort of central progression and our ability to attack central spaces. And yes, in the Premier League, all clubs set out to block the central spaces. That is true. Doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities still. And between our player profiles and the way we set up, I don't think we make enough of those situations. But I think today we did just fine.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, man. And I think when we come to touch on some of the transfer links, I think that's something that we can expand on a little bit, to be honest, because let me actually, let's just talk about it now, right? Because David Ornstein linked us to Gyokeres a couple of days ago. And I think that is one that we will be doing another scouting piece, because I think Orny is very reliable when it comes to this. And it seems that, Berta's coming in and swinging his weight around the room a little bit, getting his transfer targets up on that, chalkboard, as it were, whiteboard, whatever it is. And for me, I definitely think it's a case of maybe Arsenal fans are probably just overthinking a little bit around, he scores all of his goals in transition, therefore he's going to be completely useless because we're going to play low blocks all the time, right? And I think there's so many instances that we actually get to counter, right? And I think we're actually just not good enough facing the goal. I think there's all this talk of build up and back to goal play and bringing other players into the game and this, that, and the other that we need our striker to do. But fundamentally, the first job of the striker, I think, is that when you are facing the goal, you can shoot the ball hard, you get into scoring opportunities. Yeah. And that is something we desperately lack in the center of our pitch. You look at the chances that Odegaard's had this season. Even with the one today, I think the Martinelli cutback, he really should be bagging that. We've got Odegaard, Rice, Havertz, and now Merino, right, who's been playing centre forward for us and in those sort of advanced midfield positions. And I think those are the guys who are getting a lot of the opportunities to score for us in the center of the pitch, in the box, in and around the area. Are we having enough conversion? Have we got enough ball striking? Have we got enough guys who are willing to just let the thing go in and around the box? You look at some of the finishes and some of the goals that this guy has scored off both feet, in the last 3 seasons. If you want to go back to the Coventry seasons as well, this guy can really hit the ball and he can hit it hard. I think his movement is pretty good. And one thing is he does actually love a transition, right? So, fundamentally, I think people are thinking that, we don't get as many opportunities to transition, but I think there's some stats going around about, high regains and pressure regains and whatnot. And we are, I think, top 3 teams in the league for winning the ball in the final third, right? And then if you look at that same metric and it says the amount of those instances that turn to shots, we've got one of the lowest conversions, right?
Yeah.
One of the lowest conversions in the league. And that is another method for us to create chances. It's actually one of the, main methods, I think, where we were able to create chances in the 22-23 season, right? We'd win the ball high, and when we were slapping teams silly in the second half of last season, we'd win the ball high, they couldn't get out, right? We'd win the ball, keep them camped in, but when we win the ball, it's a shooting opportunity, it's a shooting moment, right? And I think that this season we've not been able to convert enough of those opportunities into shots, and therefore not enough into goals. And I think someone like Gyokeres would allow us to do that. And it's funny because I think the same thing can be said about Isak at Newcastle, that a lot of his goals are scored on transition and on the break. But I think where people don't have the same reservations is that obviously Isak technically is a superb footballer, but his ball striking, I think, is excellent as well, right?
Mm.
So, I do think those two guys have got fantastic ball striking. So, I think if people aren't concerned about Isak being able to, score against a low block, score against a deep block, this, that, and the other, I also think that, they shouldn't be, as many reservations for Gyokeres. And I do respect, if you're not seeing someone do it, you don't necessarily need to extrapolate this, that, and the other. And for me, I look at the fact that Merino has scored goals playing up front for us. I look at the fact that Havertz, who I don't think is your traditional archetypal type striker, didn't really put up numbers at Chelsea, has been able to score a decent amount of goals for us as well. That if you actually have a proper number 9 there who has fundamentally good ball striking and is not shot shy, I don't doubt that they'll be able to score goals. So sometimes this football thing is quite simple. Guy shoots lots, guy runs lots. Let's see if he bangs for this team, if that is who they eventually end up getting, right? So yeah, those are my thoughts on Gyokeres. Anything that you want to add to that, Khalil?
I've got quite a bit to say, but I'll try and summarize it because I know it's late at night. But I want to use an analogy, or I want to use an example. If you look at Erling Haaland and Pep Guardiola, Manchester City. Now, Erling Haaland is the best striker in the world. I'm not saying that Gyokeres is Haaland. Let's not get it twisted. But it's a similar principle. Haaland was not a typical Pep Guardiola striker. If we all remember, he went for Harry Kane. Why? Because in the archetype of Pep Guardiola, Harry Kane was a 9.5, a 10.5, a guy that can drop deep and build up, can spray passes, can interchange, do all that and fit inside the City system. They went for Kane. He didn't come for various reasons. They went for Haaland. Haaland has been likened by some people to a League Two standard player, right? Even this season, people have criticized Haaland and said he hasn't done enough and he needs to be served on a platter before he can do anything, blah, blah, blah. All that to me is irrelevant because at the end of the day, when the season finishes, you look at Erling Haaland, he scored 25 to anywhere between 25 and 50 goals. That is the primary job of the striker. Would it be preferable if you've got a Thierry Henry, a R9, Isak archetype? Yes. But football doesn't work so nicely or linearly that you get your absolute dream choices in the positions that you want them. So back to Gyokeres. As you mentioned, Berta came in, and then within 48 hours, we get this drop. Now, do I think that he is our number one option? No. I think, as with all things transfer window and agent talk and business, these links are put out deliberately, either to be a smoke screen or to get other people out or to trigger someone into making moves. So, again, the way we've all decided that Gyokeres is going to be the person is a bit funny. However, I am very open to it for a bunch of the reasons that you listed and more. One of the most frustrating things when you're watching us is we talked about our lack of threat numerous times, but how does that lack of threat manifest? I gave an example here. Whenever we win the ball high in the opposition's half, the amount of times it comes to absolutely nothing is absolutely ridiculous. I am sorry. Can you imagine if you're winning the ball high, the ball gets given to Gyokeres and he just decides to smash it from 25 yards? What answer does the other team have for that? None. Because if you've got a guy who can kick the ball really hard, I promise you can score goals. We are seeing Mickey Merino do a similar thing, playing for Arsenal. Sometimes football isn't that complicated. And again, we are crap at transitions. Yes. Do we get as many transitions as, let's say, Nottingham Forest? No, because obviously people play Arsenal differently to Nottingham Forest. But I'm sorry, we do get enough transition opportunities to the point where if we had better executors, we would see the benefits of our play. You know, Liverpool, for years, they've been a demon transition team, whether it's under Slot or Klopp. As far as I'm aware, Liverpool were one of the best teams in Europe. Did that stop them from getting transition opportunities? No. It's more that they had the players in place that could take advantage of the transition opportunities, and that's what made them so deadly. So it's like Arsenal fans have convinced themselves that because we're crap at transitions that we don't get them, or we don't get enough of them to be effective. We do. We're just not very good at them. So yeah. Another reason, I mean, I've already spoken about the ball striking, but that's also why I like Sesko. Not because I think Sesko is a finished product, but if you see some of the array of finishes, these guys get half a chance, and because they're able to strike the ball so well of both feet, it makes it difficult. Either it goes in, or the keeper has to parry it out, and that creates a second opportunity. Or it hits it so hard, it takes a deflection off a defender, and it goes in. These are the sort of things that don't necessarily show up in the obvious stats. When you see like there was a half, a 0.4 xG chance, or whatever it is you want to call it. These are the sort of things that sort of separate the good players from, the elite players. So again, Gyokeres, I understand that he's not Isak, and if that's your issue with him, I completely understand, because Alexander Isak, as we all know, is our dream signing, and someone who I've admired for many, many years. But as I suspected for a numerous amount of years now, I don't see that deal happening for various reasons. That boat has sailed. It's hard to accept, but that boat has sailed. And then you got to look at other options.
Yeah, agreed.
One of the best scorers out there. I understand the skepticism that it's Portugal again, but we watched Darwin Núñez in Portugal, and we could see he was crap. So
yeah, the Portugal thing, I hear it, but he's played in the Championship as well.
He's played in the Championship. He's played in the Champions League. He gets his shots off. He's dangerous.
3 seasons. So
you want in the striker.
I don't think it's a case of we don't think it's going to translate to England, that he's not going to be able to deal with the physicality. The centre backs are just going to beat him up and all of this stuff. I'm not sure I'm buying it personally. To be honest, I think you just have to look at the skill set of the player, and what you think he can bring to the table. He was linked with Prem clubs after the Coventry season. I think Sporting seemed to do the groundwork there, to be fair, and he got to play at what I think is probably a higher level in terms of playing in Europe and in the Europa last year, and the Champions League this season, and he's not done badly in either competition, right? So, whether or not he's an elite striker, I think the jury's out, but he's definitely a good player for me, and it's a case of just how good is the player remains to be seen, to be honest. So yeah, jury's out on that one. We 100% will be doing a scouting piece on him. We're doing a scouting piece on Zubimendi. I promise you, yeah, if we sign that goalkeeper, I was going to say we're not going to do a scouting piece, but we'll probably do a scouting piece on him as well, reluctantly. Yeah, Mr. Berta, you better get to work, right? So we've gone 38 minutes, Khalil. We're not even talked about the main man, not really. Yeah. So standing ovation, Bukayo Saka comes on the pitch. What I think about the 65th minute, it was something like that. To get his 25 minutes. Yeah, get his 25 minutes run out ahead of Everton and the big one in a week's time against Madrid. Arteta was talking in a pre-match press conference that he's ready to go. Everyone was posting about it. The guy is going to be back. How many minutes is this guy going to play? This, that, and the other. He does get his 30-minute run out. I don't think he really touched the ball that much in the 30 minutes. It seemed like, he came on and we decided that we weren't going to be right-hand sided dominant in the way that we try and build, but I'm not complaining too tough. I didn't want him doing too much work out there, but it was very, 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 very happy sight to see. Firstly, him, just warming up on the sideline. I think the first time he came out to do his warm up in the first half, crowd got very excited, and then obviously to see him come in back on the pitch. I need to find the clip with the sound after this pod, just so we can play it to really, so you can really hear the crowd noise and that kind of thing. So that was fantastic. And then for him to get his goal sort of minutes later, it's almost like flipping how what this season could have been like if this guy had been fit the whole year. So I think that's now in all competitions his 23rd goal and assist in 22 starts, right?
Oh.
22 starts, 25 games overall, right? So he was onto a worldie of a season. He was onto a worldie of a season had he been fit. But alas, here we are, man. So Khalil, talk me through your emotions around Saka.
Stood up in my living room, bro. The aura was off the charts. I was
Man weren't even warming up. He was aura farming, yeah? Is that what you're telling me?
aura farming. Straight. Yeah. I waited for this 3 months too long. Yeah, he's the face of the franchise, as you say. I've seen a picture of Anne Hathaway posted with I think it was Saka's shirt. Yeah, man, he's got motion. These other guys ain't got motion like that, man. Tell Phil Foden to bring up his celebrity fans. I was gonna start bringing up man from Coronation Street and stuff. Anyway, it was very nice to see him back. Understatement of the year. I know there was panic about him being rushed back. I wasn't of the opinion that he was being rushed back. And I think that was confirmed by Arteta's comments in the presser about he's had, numerous sessions behind closed doors and played a closed door game. And I think even generally, I think Arsenal sort of, and you can see that with the January business, they sort of took the approach that we're going to punt the season. So if you're going to punt the season with your January business, it makes no sense to then rush back your star player at the end of the season. But yeah, very happy for him to get his goal as well. That's a monkey off the back. You see the classic touches that Saka does. I think it was that ball over the top when he first came on, and he's got two men around him, and he's able to shield the ball, turn, and spray the pass. Like, these are actions that they look so simple, but 99% of the guys who he's compared to don't do it. Like the speed of thought, the cleanness of the execution. These are things we just take for granted with someone like Saka, but as we've seen without him, like, our attack does not function in the same way. So yeah, very happy. Again, the things that you worry about with a long-term injury is, does he have the burst? Does he have any reluctance in how he moves? Doesn't look like there's any of that there. So yeah, and again, the crowd reaction was very good. I think it's another reminder to Saka that he's very much appreciated in the fan base, despite whatever nonsense you may see online from time to time. I've been of the opinion that he's been our best player for a long time. Again, I think this time out of the team has further proven that. Yeah, everyone is very happy to see him back ahead of next week. From a tactical point of view, it'd be very interesting to see if Ethan and Saka get played together, if Ethan and Saka start on either wing, or is Ethan going to be sort of demoted back to an impact sub where he was, kind of what he was doing at the beginning of the season when he started getting minutes. But again, another attacking option to have. And yeah, just stay fit. Hopefully after this season, when they do a sit down and review and they see how the Saka injury completely collapsed our season, that investments are made in the summer to prevent this sort of situation from happening ever again. Because he's a tail ender. He's, I say, borderline captain. He's one of our captains. He's a technical leader. He's a spiritual leader. He's an everything leader. He's he does all of this and more. So that's the kind of talent that he's supposed to cherish. He's supposed to protect. He's supposed to do everything to elevate, whether it's supplementing it with buys, whether it's rotating, minutes. So he's not doing 120 minutes in a third round game in the Carling Cup. Like, you got to do everything you can to protect these talents and to help these talents flourish. And hopefully, this season is one that we don't see again, or we don't see for a very, very long time, in terms of his absence and the impact that his absence had on the team. 101, And yeah, man, if we go and sneak a Champions League, he'll be top of that Ballon d'Or podium, and no one can ever chat to us ever again about any other winger in world football. So yes.
Yeah, for real, big facts, big facts, right? So, last few minutes, let's go through some listeners' questions here, Khalil. Right. So, first one from Count Draxula. He says, "My hot take is that defending in the PL is at an all-time low. Marino is putting in decent numbers at centre forward, and even Kai had a decent purple patch last season. Would you be happy if we shopped in more obscure leagues next summer?"
Obscure leagues for what though? For strikers?
Such as next summer, such as a Portuguese league brackets Gyokeres.
So we already touched on Gyokeres. I'm more than open or happy or whatever you want to phrase it to have someone like him. The only sort of pushback I have on the obscure leagues is when it comes to our forward line, we need as ready-made as possible. So I don't know how that juxtaposed with unknown leagues, but our timeline is to win and to win soon and to win now. So any project signings, while they're nice, if they're not helping us win the league in 25-26, I'm sorry, you got to demote that down and look elsewhere. But yeah, Gyokeres, I've already spoken about him. I think if he will come to, it will not surprise me if he gets signed, comes to this league, and he scores a bunch of goals. Everyone's going, "Oh, why didn't we do that?" And I think, again, Arsenal fans, we have a lot of PTSD for various reasons, and I think it shows up in these conversations about Gyokeres. Because, again, finding Gyokeres doesn't necessarily mean that you solved all your problems, but it definitely helped in a number of ways. It helped, for a little bit of his self-creation issues we have with our forwards. It helps with the transition threats. He's athletic. He can run all day. I've seen a clip from Nani, actually, did an interview with Rio Ferdinand, and they were asking him about Gyokeres. And he said, Rio Ferdinand was asking him about how do you feel about Gyokeres, and Nani was saying about how a year ago he doesn't feel as if he could have played or he could have succeeded in the Premier League because he didn't have the attributes to, but his game has matured. So yeah, specific to Gyokeres, I've got no issue with bringing him in as a target. And again, although I don't think he solves all of our issues, he can definitely solve a lot of the issues and can help alleviate some of the pressures that we have on our wingers. Because again, before we were speaking about how sometimes the ball gets funneled out wide and you're expecting your wingers to do sort of one-on-one madness. But if you've got a guy who can occupy centrally, it creates space for, other guys and other people. And, from there, that's how you end up creating and scoring overall more goals. So, yeah. Cool. Next question from Baitface Nate. Shout him out, regular listener. If the season ended today, who would be your player of the season or why? I think we touched on this a little already, but it would probably, for me, go to Gabriel. I think if I had to do a top three, actually, to make it a bit more varied, I'd say Gabriel definitely would be number one. Colossus, he has been he's been the bedrock. I think Saliba has been good, but there has been shaky moments as well. I think the consistency of Gabriel has been, immense, elite, however you want to describe it. I think those rumors of going to Saudi did rattle me a little because, so what if you get 100 million? When you lose a player of that quality, it's more. It takes more than just money to replace them. So yeah, I think Gabriel will be number one. I think number two, I'd probably say, it's probably all going to be guys in our first third. Maybe Saliba, maybe Timber. Again, our defense has been sort of the saving grace of our season. And then, three, maybe David Raya. Again, if your keeper is in your top three, it means that something has gone severely wrong in your season. But yeah, this is what's happened. Next question from Casson _San. In honor of Nelly's crazy assist, can you list some of your favorite some of your favorite Arsenal assists of all time? Ozil's back heel flick on the halfway line versus Villa for Giroud comes to mind. Yeah, I think you named one of my favorite assists of all time, which is the Ozil back heel. It almost ended up not being one considering how Giroud almost dragged it wide, but I think that's probably high on my list. I think another one is the Ozil against Leicester, probably both of them, but maybe the second one, the one where he sort of starts off the attack from deep and then brings the ball up, exchanges passes, and then does the walk. Yeah, he does the steps over the ball and then plays it through to Aubameyang. So I think that's probably one of my favorite ones as well. And what other ones are there? There's probably a Cesc one in there somewhere, but we don't rate snakes on this pod. So yeah, I'll go with probably Ozil against Villa, the back heel on the halfway line. Next question from Tobes Logic. This actually may not even be a question. Good evening, fellas. This ain't even a question. This is a plea. Let's join our hands together in prayer for our brother Gabriel. Yes. Yeah, please pray to your respective spiritual people for sustenance, for health, for all that, because we are going to need him if we're going to be going through, especially in that second leg. If there's a world in which we go through or we go to the Bernabeu with a lead, we're going to need our centre-backs to be up to scratch, because we all know when it gets to the 75th minute at the Bernabeu, things start happening. Magic spells start getting casted and things start going left real quick, and you need guys who can stand up in that warfare, and be counted, and Gabriel is definitely one of them. Next question from Niger Rasta. How much copium has been injected from Saka returning? So this is the issue. I did inject quite a bit of copium when I saw those pictures drop last week, but the Gabriel injury has really sort of put a taper on things. So I'm going to need good news. Very soon in regards to that Gabriel injury. I think the copium I'm taking from tonight is the fact that he walked off, which scientifically means absolutely nothing. But, we're dealing in copium here, so we'll see what happens. Next question from Yonko Abs. If God/Allah says you can get Saka back, but I'll take Gabriel away for the Real Madrid clash, would you have taken it? I think this is subjective, because if Gabriel was unavailable, but we had the rest of our defenders available, I would probably take that trade, as mad as that sounds, because in theory you can play, Calafiori, you can play Tomiyasu, who's an NPC at this point. You still got options where they're clearly not as good as Gabriel, but we've seen what life has been like without Saka, and if we are going to get anything from Madrid, we are going to need contributions from Saka. And even now we've seen, now that we've seen his return, it could be that Ethan is an impact sub, and you never know. The game is opening up. Saka is, giving stress to Mendy, whoever's playing at left back. Once those spaces start opening up and Ethan gets introduced, you never know what can happen. So I would take that trade. However, let's hope and pray that we get both of them back and ready for both legs, because we are definitely going to need them. Next question from Bogan_M5. Shout him out. If Havertz can put up numbers and Mourinho can put up numbers, why are fans worrying so much about Gyokeres flopping? We've touched on this a little, or a lot maybe. I think another thing to add on this is, in the world of football Twitter and football manager, and however you want to call it, there's definitely the perception of, if you are a player who is highly regarded, they have to be sort of under 25, 23 years old, young and, hot prospect. And obviously Gyokeres doesn't fit nicely into that mold where he's 26. But that inherently is not a problem for me. We've seen some of the great strikers at Arsenal Football Club come in their, mid to late 20s. You saw Aubameyang come, score a bunch of goals, at age 29. Ian Wright famously became our all-time leading scorer, coming in his late 20s. So I think our fans need to sort of shed that expectation, shed that worry that just because Gyokeres is a bit older that he's somehow not as desirable. I think another thing is we all know him, or we are aware that he played at Coventry, or maybe not too many of us actually watched him play. And there's obviously the perception of if you're in the Championship at such an age, then maybe there's something wrong with you. But we have seen many strikers in recent years come up from the Championship and score plenty of goals. So, that in itself shouldn't be an issue. And again, the Portugal factor. I, like many of you, have been skeptical of players or strikers specifically, that go to Portugal and score loads of goals. But one, you've seen Gyokeres perform on the international stage. You see them perform in the Champions League. And you've even seen him do all right, in the Championship. You did see bits of him. And when you look at the other players, and this is where probably watching games helps a little. Again, we saw Darwin Núñez play, and we could all see that he was very questionable in his actions. So him not necessarily banging at Liverpool shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. And I think the final thing on this is, again, it's the Isak factor. Is he as good as Isak? Absolutely not. However, that should not mean that you should absolutely, denigrate any other prospect that comes our way. That's my opinion on that one. Next question is from, let me see. Oh, Khalil HT3. Thank you for listening. He says, "Good evening, gentlemen. I hope you're well. Tonight was the return of Emil Smith-Rowe. What did you make of his performance? Now that 8 months have passed and he's been outscored by Mika Marino, do you believe that the decision to sell was the correct one?" Thanks again. Mr. Dankoogs, you want to take this one?
Sorry, yeah, I've always thought it was the right decision to sell him, though, to be honest, because fundamentally he wasn't playing here. I think there's various arguments that you can use to say, he's not good enough for Arsenal, this, that, and the other. I don't think I've seen enough to change my mind on that, considering sort of the midfielders that we've been, sort of playing and utilising so far this season. I think, his numbers would bang out with any of our midfielders at present, despite, what you might think about his general performances. I think midfield has been kind of an issue for us the past couple of seasons, really, overall. But yeah, he wasn't playing here. So, I think he's gone now. And I don't think any parties can really have too many regrets about that. To be honest, I think he's finding his feet at Fulham. He started well. I think he's kind of sort of tapered off the sort of hot streak that he had initially, sort of scoring every week and this, that, and the other. But yeah, I think he's doing all right, man. I think he's doing all right. And yeah, I think it was the right one. 30 mil. Yeah, not bad. I think next time you get 30 million, maybe don't spend the majority of that on Mikel Merino, but hey ho, he scored today, so it is what it is. It's what it is.
The only thing I'd say not the only thing. The main thing I'd say on Smith-Rowe is he is arguably the most talented player in Fulham's squad, but he is not starting on a regular basis as recently as the last few months. And Marco Silva made some comments on that he needs to improve his consistency. And I think that's kind of where we are with Smith-Rowe. He made reference to the fact that he hasn't played in 2 years, and he's still struggling with the week in, week out demands of playing, in the Premier League, which, again, he's got to rise it, man. Like, it's all good being a good talent, but if you want to be playing, week in, week out for a team that's competing at the top in central midfield, you got to up the levels, man. You're too talented just to be, doing, cardio sessions, week in, week out. Like, you are that record signing, probably on more wages than most. Got to show it up, man. And it hurts me to say this. As much as I do like joking about Smith-Rowe, it does hurt me to see, a player of his talent not making the most of it at this point. But hey, there's still plenty of time. Again, this is his first season away in a new environment. He hasn't been away from, he's been with Arsenal his whole life. So there is an adjustment period. But hey, if you want to be one of the best players in the league, you want to show Arsenal why they should have let you go. You got to be doing more than half-hearted cardio sessions. But that's just me.
Yeah, fair play, man. Fair play. So Bogan N5, he says, if Havertz can put up numbers and Marino can put up numbers, why are our fans worrying so much about Gyokeres flopping? I think we touched on that.
I did answer that.
You did that one, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. Huh?
Oh, you think you done all the questions, yeah? Very efficient, man. Well done, Khalil, man. My son was moving a bit mad. He still hasn't gone back down, so we're going to need to wrap this up sharpish, to be honest. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Khalil, thank you for joining me. It's been good to be back podding with you guys. Like I said, I'm going to aim to get some scouting pieces out shortly, given that the manager is talking about how big the summer window is before we've even ended the season and before we've played Madrid in a Champions League. So shows you where his head is at, if you want to take it that way. I'm definitely taking that way because Arteta's in my bad books at the moment. So it is what it is. But Khalil, thanks for joining me, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys soon, man. Peace.
Peace.
Yo, when I spit bars in a rave, man, I go hard like Santan.